Welcome back to another episode of Practice Underwater. This is your host, Dr. Matt Garino. I'm here with George. George, how are we doing today?
Wait, these roles are reversed. Are you leading the interview today?
I am. Shoes on the other foot.
So this is our way of saying that today's Matt's turn to interview our mystery dentist today. So he's going to take it away in the intro.
Well, we have a real treat today. We have a guy who is a new grad owner. Been an owner for a year, owned right out of school. Not unlike yourself, George.
You having me on the show today, Matt?
No. This guy has been in his first year. You know, he's grown his office a little bit. He's still going through some struggles. He has a vision for his office that he's not quite getting there. And you'll see kind of in the episode, we talk through a lot of that. George, I just wanted to get your thoughts real quick. You bought right out of school. We got a lot of students listening to this, a lot of students who are fired up about ownership. They listen to Share Practices. Would you do it again?
Oh, man. That's a rough question. I guess it's not a resounding yes as I thought it would be. So obviously ownership for me has gone really well. You know, I think I've gotten everything I wanted to out of ownership, but I always joke on the show about how me as a dentist, I'm like a 40th percentile dentist. And the reason I'm like a 40th percentile dentist is I communicate really well with patients. I diagnose well, but my clinical skill set is just so minimal. And I really attribute that to me jumping into practice ownership right away because I didn't have a safe associateship where I could go fail and grow clinically and take on specialty procedures and just focus on being a dentist. So if it was my plan to be a solo practitioner or if clinical practice was going to be a really big part of my career, which I think it is for most, and like, so then, but then look at someone like Ike, who also pretty much bought right out of school but in school, he was just doing everything clinically. So for me, I've always been a retracted person clinically where I've always had to feel very comfortable before I did anything. So maybe, because I've seen new grads do it two ways. You know, you got like Derek and Steve, you know, two guys that bought out of school and they both clinically are pretty ambitious with stuff. And so I think if you're the type of dentist who is comfortable doing something for the first time on a patient that is very valuable to you and you can fake it till you make it, you know, then maybe I would consider clinically, then it might not be as big of a hindrance. But for me, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I am doing something for the first time without knowing 100% what I'm doing. And so for me, yeah, I just retracted clinically a lot as a new owner. And so that was my experience.
Yeah, thanks for that, George. And it's very poignant to the interview we're about to get to because I think a lot of that happened to this new grad. He had a couple bad experiences clinically early on in this ownership, and he kind of shied away from getting back into it because he didn't have that period where he's able to, you know, go a little bit out of his comfort zone and an associate job he's not going to stay at or residency. Like he didn't have that training zone. And I think you guys will see in this interview how has hindered his production over this year because he is operating out of a solo doctor office. So without further ado, we'll bring on this guest. Hope you guys enjoy the interview. We'll talk to you in the outro. Welcome back to the Practice Underwater podcast. This is your host, Matt Garino. I have a very exciting interview today with a new grad owner who has owned his practice for just over a year now. He's contacted Practice Underwater to have us open up his practice and take a look to see what we see. So before I delay any longer, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So we put this out there on the Facebook group that we are looking for participants in this podcast, and you reached out. What did you see in this for you?
So I've always just heard about you guys talking about metrics, and every once in a while you'll mention something that I've never even thought about or looked into. So I thought you guys would be able to take a deeper dive into my office and kind of point out some areas where we are not doing as great as we would hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And why don't you give the audience just a little background on you and background on the practice you're running?
Yeah, so I recently graduated from dental school, bought an office right out of school. I don't have any type of dental background as far as like family or really close mentors. So kind of just took the plunge and went for it. I bought a smaller office because it was tough to get more money from banks. And I also didn't really know what I could handle as far as production wise. Coming out of dental school, I had no idea what I could do. So I bought what I thought was a fixer upper type practice, something where I thought I could make a couple easy, quick fixes and changes to get it close to where I wanted to be. So we recently hit our 1 year mark. Um, Overall, I'd say I'm happy with what we've done. However, when I listen to this podcast and read different things on Facebook, I definitely realize that I have a long way to go. And sometimes, like what you guys have talked about, it makes it hard to like enjoy some of your successes when you see other people's that are just far beyond what you've done. But I'm definitely happy where I'm at, but have a lot of room to improve.
Yeah, well, kudos to you, man, for just jumping in and going for it. Because I just remember when I coming out of dental school, I couldn't cut a crown, and I couldn't. The thought of running an office while also learning to be a dentist is such an arduous task. So, really, all the credit in the world for you taking that plunge so early.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know that I really knew what I was getting into. I probably would have like waited 6 months if I were to do it again. Just get used to being a real dentist first, but it worked out. So
yeah, that'd be useful for the audience to hear. Like, what was your real experience that just jumping in? And you mentioned you may wish you took a little longer, but how did you feel you were able to handle all that?
The first couple months, probably 2 or 3 months, I felt like I was just doing everything I could to keep my head above water. Um, I was really nervous about a lot of things, sometimes too nervous to diagnose things that I had seen. A lot of times nervous to talk about my age with patients because for some reason in those first couple months seemed like every other patient mentioned that I looked too young to be a dentist or some reference to Doogie Howser. But that doesn't happen as much anymore, maybe once a month. I mean, I do look young, but they could just see that deer in the headlights in me when I would walk into the room and didn't really have a great way to handle it. But I was pretty comfortable with my clinical skills. The school I went to, we were able to do quite a bit, and our faculty gave us a lot of leeway as far as how comfortable you were. They'd allow you to do what you wanted to. I learned pretty quickly what I wanted to try to do and what I wanted to refer. Got in trouble once or twice kind of early with some extractions and just since then decided that's not really my thing. So I send out a lot of extractions and I think it's kind of slowed some of my clinical skills being on my own so quickly. But there's a lot of great CE and I'm looking into more things.
Cool. Where did that like drive come from that propelled you to make such a huge career decision right off the bat? Was there a point in time that shifted for you?
Well, I'd say first year of dental school, a friend of mine got me into Dental Town and just started reading there and looking at different things and really understanding the benefits of ownership pretty early. Because like my life's motto is I don't want to work harder than I have to. And so it kind of seemed like ownership is definitely the way to have the best lifestyle, most freedom, and work smarter, not harder.
That's interesting because it's like, don't work harder than I have to, but let me just do the most hard work I could ever choose right off the bat.
Yeah, but I mean, it pays off. So it's kind of like compounding interest is what I looked at it. Like if you invest early, it really pays off over the long run. So I thought I'd just try to jump in, learn everything as fast as I could, and then just really reap the rewards from that. And I don't know that that's really how it works, especially in dentistry, but that was my mindset. Like you can only learn how to run an office by doing it. So that's why I jumped in.
That's awesome. And we have a lot of students listening. So, what would you say to them as far as like how they could best prepare themselves to be in your position as an owner so early on?
I would use a lot of the resources online that they have. There are a lot of great threads on Dentaltown with a lot of great information. It's probably never too early to go to Breakaway. I went to that; it was great. I definitely recommend it to anybody looking into ownership. Um, I'd just first try to use all of the like free resources that we have because there's so much information online and so many dentists are so helpful. But one thing I wish I would do and could do better is reach out to some of my mentors and really work with them because I'm slow to reach out with different things. But for the most part, the advice I've gotten from them has been real beneficial.
What do you think stops you from reaching out more?
Uh, Maybe a little bit of pride as well as not wanting to bother them or take up too much of their time. There's a dentist that lives about an hour away from me here, and I early on when I bought the office, I bought a few things from him that he was selling, and so I went to his office and he sat me down for like 4 hours and just tried to spill all of his wisdom that he's learned over 40 years. And I've reached out occasionally, and he's always been great, but I should definitely do it more. But I feel like I need a better reason than just one or two quick questions, and so I have failed to really take advantage.
Yeah, it's tough because like as dentistry and especially as a solo owner as you are, you're very much on an island. And you get your staff around them, but they're not going through the struggles and the ups and downs that you are as owner. So I think that's an easy kind of pitfall to fall into in dentistry is just, just being by yourself. So what is it about, like, why do you think it's a bother for you to reach out and ask for help or just to connect?
I think just as a person, I've always been slow to reach out. When I moved away from like my hometown, I don't reach out to a lot of my best friends as often as I should. That's just not who I am as a person. So that's probably why I kind of struggle with that personally. Everybody's probably going to be a little different than I am. But one thing I'm doing or hoping to do to try to combat that is I've got a goal to become a 2 doctor practice. I'm nowhere near that right now, but I would love to at least grow enough to where I have either a partner or associate working with me to just because for me I think that would be real beneficial just for a mindset standpoint, like somebody to talk to that's in the same position would be great.
What is it about the 2 doctor office that really gets you excited?
Well, I mean, like logistically, it's great. So vacation, for example, I take about 6 weeks of vacation a year, and I have them all lined up a year in advance. But I think having a partner or somebody else there makes that a lot easier. I was just off last week and had a couple phone calls from my office, trying to handle different emergencies and situations, and I think having another doctor around would be great for that.
It can be tough, when you're away from the office and your manager's calling you and texting you, this patient's hurting, this patient had this concern. It's a lot to deal with. What would like having the 2 doctor office make possible for you that isn't possible right now?
Well, I think aside from more comfortable vacations, uh, I think it would. I think it would make my work life a little more comfortable, a little more enjoyable. I don't say I love dentistry. I don't hate it, but I think having like all my staff is females. So I think just having I would probably hire a male associate just to have another male presence in the office. I think I would enjoy that. Um,
It's almost like in dental school, they should have a course for us of like, here's how you interact with a middle-aged female and lead a team of all women.
yeah. My staff has told me more than once that I need to work on that. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm hearing like it's just a bit better balance for you having that other doctor there, and just a more comfortable working environment.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So you bought this practice a year ago. You've seen some growth over this year. You came to us saying you're having some shortcomings. Some things aren't going well. You mentioned in your email to me that you had some issues with the seller. Why don't you take us through some of how you got burned by this seller?
Yeah. So I had a dental specific lawyer kind of help me out, write our contract and look through everything. When there were a couple of things that were not handled, I think, in the best way possible. And I think it's pretty standard that, for example, all of the money is paid immediately to the seller, regardless of what provisions you have in your contract. But for example, like redo work, there were more than a few example or just terrible dentistry done within the last year. And our contract only stipulated that she would pay 60% of my full fee for any redo work that I had to do that she had performed within the last year. Well, so I bought the office. She stayed around for a week and then left and completely disappeared. Didn't answer emails, didn't answer phone calls, didn't answer anything. Didn't even answer to any of my staff who, like, they asked for letters of recommendation and other things, and she just completely disappeared. And so getting paid or any type of questions answered about any of the patients was not an option. She also, so my seller went and worked part-time in another state, and she took some equipment with her.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. Some hand pieces, her implant motor, and just whole kit and everything. And just some random other things, but it came out to about like $15,000 worth of equipment
Oh my
that
Lord.
I end up purchasing. I mean, hand pieces at $700 to $1,000 a piece kind of adds up pretty quick. But so that, I mean, that was frustrating, and having no way to do anything about it outside of a civil lawsuit is kind of frustrating. But so I don't know. I would recommend that there's some type of provision put in people's contracts where the money is paid over time, especially if you have things like the seller paying for redo work or things like that. But that was not the case for me. So I just take the cost and whatever.
That's so tough because it's like nothing you could ever foresee. I'm sure the seller was more than normal in all her reactions, and then you get to that first weekend, she's just a ghost.
Yeah. She was so nice throughout the whole process and loved to talk about how she loves her patients and is so excited for somebody to take care of them. And she really wanted to make sure I was the right fit. Just saying everything that like you're supposed to say as a seller. I imagine her broker probably coached her on some of those things, what to say and how to do things. But yeah, she fooled me.
It's just tough. People just show their true colors in situations like this, and that's disappointing. But you're here, you're past it, you're down year one. How was your first year? How'd you feel it went?
Yeah, so if I did not listen to podcasts and I did not read about people like Derek Williams, I would be real happy and excited about where I'm at. I did pretty well. I'm happy. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints. I just think I could have done better. But I'm happy. I think year two will be a lot better than year one. But just seeing what other people can do kind of sometimes just it's a bummer.
Yeah, it's just like clouds how you're actually doing. And I think that's an important topic to discuss for a little here is like, because so many people are out there sharing their results and there's so many podcasts and you're inherently comparing yourself to where someone else is and how that can kind of weigh you down. In many ways it can inspire you and to get better, but in a lot of ways it's can be a vehicle to put yourself down. So talk a little bit through your mindset when it comes to hearing about other people's results and what you make that mean about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, So when I started dental school, I kind of had this vision and dream of like what my lifestyle would look like and what my income would be, and that was, worked out 4 day work week, make the 2 to 300,000 a year, and I was like, if I can just achieve that, I've made it. Well, I did that my first year. I worked 4 days a week, made within the first year made pretty good money. Um, and I'll tell my wife all the time, like, I don't know why I get upset at myself. This is exactly what I wanted. And I did it in my first year. But seeing that other people have done so much better makes me think, like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not so much better? So I just have to always kind of try to remind myself, like, hey, I'm where I want to be, and focus on more of the positive things and I don't know, what's going right and what I can do right to make it even better, but not so much like trying to play keep up because I'm never going to be the best. I'm I'm slightly above average in most things that I do, and I should just be okay with that sometimes.
Well, just to say, from where you are in your career, being how young, already finishing your first year as owner is incredible. So I know it's tough for you to realize that because you're you and you've always been you. But from the outside, it's really incredible what you've done this first year. And like I said, it's a tough pitfall to fall through to internalize the way you aren't hitting what other people are doing in certain ways.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
I feeling like there's like a lack of gratitude a little bit on your side.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything you can kind of take on around that to kind of more center yourself?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I sometimes just in talking to my wife, she'll kind of remind me like, "Hey, this is what we wanted." Like, because sometimes I've been a little stressed about the office, especially early on, and she'll remind me or just tell me like, "I'm really glad that we bought the office." She's been kind of involved with the whole thing. I mean, you can't not talk about work or your office when you go home. So she's pretty well involved and has filled in the office with front desk type things when we needed her. But um, she'll remind me a little bit, like that we're pretty happy and where we want to be. So I think that,
How can you remind yourself?
yeah. Stop listening to some podcasts with some people on them, maybe. No. Yeah, just focusing on the things that are going right and counting my blessings, I guess.
I mean, what does that look like in actuality?
Um, I don't know, just finding happiness in your lifestyle and what you're doing. Not sure. I feel like you
Yeah.
asked the same question a couple times. I don't know what you're getting at.
I'm gonna do that. The audience will figure that out after a little while. No, I just think it's a gap area for you. It's a way to be more centered, way to have more gratitude in your life, and just more enjoyment for what you're doing. And that just comes with appreciation and realizing that, hey, I'm in a great spot. I have 1 year of equity in my belt, and I'm a new grad.
Mhm.
That alone is pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I won't push you any more on that. You're off the hot seat there.
All right.
All right, so we got this practice. We're in it a year. I like to start these with your vision for the practice. Where do you want to be in 1 year, 5 year, 10 years? I know you mentioned the 2 doctor office, but let's think about a year from now. Where do you want to be?
Yeah. So I'm pretty comfortable working 4 days. I know there's a big thing about 3 days in podcasts. I get enough jokes about only working 4 days from family and friends, and I like to stay fairly busy. So working 4 days, keeping my schedule a little bit busier. I Throughout the first year, I've scheduled my production pretty comfortably, just because running into new things sometimes you never know how long it's going to take or what's going to go on. But I've also had some holes. So just kind of filling my day and making sure I'm busier while I'm at the office is something I want to do. Kind of that work really hard when you're away so you can play really hard when you're home type of scenario. Um, I I mean, production wise, number wise, I have some goals. I don't know if we want to. Are we talking about
Let's
the
hear 'em.
numbers and things?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the office I bought was producing 40, low 40s, 40, 41 on average a month. Um, we kind of average 50, 55 or so, mid 50s as far as collection, I guess, goes. Um, I think I'd like to be more in that like 80 to 100 range is kind of I think a comfortable production level for me as a doctor and how I like to do things. Um, so I'd like to get there within the next year of like consistently collecting 80,000 or so a month. We're working on bringing on a second hygienist, which we have 5, kind of 6 hygiene days a week, depending on the week right now. I want to get to like 8 hygiene days, more or less. Um, I there are a couple like issues in the office that I'd like to fix that I've kind of hung on to from the previous doctor and haven't fixed just yet. For example, she rarely used the perio maintenance code, and so we do 4 prophies a year with a lot of patients. And I know with my analytics, really messes things up because it doesn't show that I have as many perio patients as I do. Um, but I don't understand real well how that affects insurance, and my office manager is doesn't either, and really thinks it's gonna like cost a lot of patients a lot more than they're used to paying. So we've been pretty slow to make that change. And then this year, I'd love to get better systems. Right now, I have way too many questions coming to me from my staff that I should have a system in place where they should know the answer or be able to find it without asking me every day different things.
Yeah, they can get old, huh?
Yeah, it gets old fast.
Awesome. So we're looking at filling your days, getting up to 80 to 100, getting in the second hygienist going. What is it about 80 to 100? Like, why? What would that make possible that isn't now? What's that number represent? Because at the end of the day, that's just a collection number. But it's about how does it impact your life?
Yeah, it doesn't. That's the problem. Honestly, like right now where I'm at collecting that 55, my overhead is really well controlled. It's pretty low, hovering in that below 60, right at like 50, 55%. But I think also getting to that point, I could pay my staff a little better. I think they're all kind of on the lower end, and I've created a bonus system which uh, has made them all pretty excited. And as a dentist, I think sometimes we like lose a grip on reality with what our staff kind of goes through. $200 or $300 extra a month can make a big difference to them, whereas to most dentists, it's nothing. You can lose $200 out of your wallet and never know. So I think like being able to have just a happier staff or being able to pay them more and they'll be able to enjoy things. And so that, but outside of that, I mean, it will change my life in no way, shape, or form as far as like my spending goes. Maybe I'd pay off my student loans a little bit quicker, but I'm doing just fine and ahead of schedule, I guess.
Nice. So from my end, it doesn't seem like a real goal of yours. It's not, like you said, it's not going to. So what is the real goal?
Oh man, that's tough. Like I read those Justin Short emails where he's like talking about what you have to give up to reach your goals, and the most recent one was something about like not watching as much TV at night. And I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to hire Justin Short right now because I'm not ready to give up some of those things at home and come to the office on Friday and do those things. So yeah, my real goals are it's what I would like and want. I think that what I want most is having like a partner or associate with me, but I'm not doing enough to get there. I think that's what would really impact or change my life. Um, and maybe that's what I'm throwing that number at 80 or 100 kind of like puts me there, but or puts me close. I don't know.
That sounds better. So you're looking for basically a better work balance. It's not, like you said, it's not so much the number. It's so working backwards. How are you going to know you're ready for that partner associate?
I don't know. I didn't know I was ready for more hygiene until my mentor was like, "Hey, you need at least 1 or 2 more days right now." We were just running at 4 days, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "You need to do this." And I kept thinking like, well, we have a lot of holes in hygiene. I mean, people reschedule a day before, 2 days before, and you sit there and watch your hygienist twiddle her thumbs for 2 hours, and you're like, man, what do you mean I need more hygiene? But when we added another day or day and a half, our new patients increased by a fair amount. I mean, we went from averaging 10 to averaging 35 or so. And I think adding more availability and options helped with that, as well as a whole lot of other things like our Google reviews and website and different things. But having that availability definitely helped. I don't know. I really don't know outside of what I've read as far as what you need to get to another associate, but having more work than I can handle, I think, is a pretty good indicator. Scheduling patients out 3 weeks to a month for restorative or other things. I'm nowhere near 3 weeks to a month scheduled out. I can get somebody in Monday if I needed to.
I want to go back to that hygiene thing because that's really interesting. I think a lot of dentists have that same resistance where they'll see holes in their schedule and they're like, I don't need another hygienist. Like, I can't open any other days. I got holes in my regular days. And that mindset shift is really tough to do. So kudos for you for doing that for a day or two because it's not easy. I feel like a lot of things, it's whatever feels uncomfortable or feels like this is making me weary is probably where we should look because that's where the biggest breakthroughs are behind. So talk a little bit about that. You know, you mentioned more new patients coming in with the extra hygienist opening. Talk to dentists right now who are on the fence about doing that.
Yeah, I have only had a very positive experience with it. When we first opened our first day, so Wednesdays was the first day that we added a hygienist. And I remember looking at it like a Wednesday out, and we had one person scheduled. And I was like, man, that's an expensive pro fee. And by the time we got there, we had 7 out of the 8 slots full. And I was just like, wow. And I kind of joked to my front desk, like, hey, let's do this every week. And for those first 2 months, that Wednesday was always full, both columns. And I was just like, how did this happen? Where are all these people coming from? And every once in a while, one of those double days will fall apart big time. And we'll see like 7 total hygiene patients out of the 16 we had scheduled. And I'm like, man, that hurts. But then I just look back at the other Wednesdays, and those are typically pretty good production days for me, just having that hygiene doubled. I mean, that's just easy production right there. So that's what kind of got me into adding another Monday here and there with another hygienist. When you find a good hygienist, hang on to her. I think like for every dentist out there, you probably already know if you own an office, but do what you have to keep the good hygienists because they make a big difference and can make your life so much easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, they are the biggest drivers of your practice. It starts and ends with hygiene. That's interesting because so you probably pay your hygienist maybe $300 a day, would you say? In that range?
Yep.
So I'm looking at your dashboard now. Your average hourly hygienist does $150 an hour. So you would just need 2 patients and they've paid for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's something I don't think dentists really understand. It's like you add on this new hygienist and yeah, they have a lot of spots in their schedule, but it takes 2 patients for them to pay for themselves. And that doesn't even account to the stuff that you've treatment planned now off these 2 extra patients. So I just don't see where that's lost for people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. When you look at it that way, it's just makes so much sense. But when you look at a hygienist sitting around for 6 hours, it just like hurts. Um, but I kind of wanted to throw this out there because this is a thought I'm going through right now, and I think I'm going to do it. In that, one of my hygienists right now, she has worked in the front office in the past, and what I want to do is have her. She's my current full-time hygienist, and then I have part-time, and I'm looking for another full-time hygienist, and I'm going to have my current hygienist work in the office and hygiene. So our most coveted appointments, and probably like most people, first appointment of the day, last appointment of the day. I could fill every single day, every 4 o'clock, every 8 o'clock, every day, and not even try. But filling in between that might not happen. And so having my hygienist doing some office manager type duties when she's off helps my one front desk, because we just have one office staff right now. We kind of help her burden of answering the phones, handling all insurance. I mean, you're on hold with an insurance company for an hour. So instead of having two front office staff, I'm going to have a hygienist that floats. And I don't know. I think I'm going to try it. I talked to her about it, and now I just have to find the perfect hygienist to be my full-timer. But opening up a lot of space, paying that front office a little bit extra, but having a whole lot of flexibility, I think will help me grow as fast as possible.
Interesting. You'll have to let us know when I bring you back on in several months how that's going, because my initial reaction is against it. Just from taking a producer and turning into a non-producer, I guess something in my head just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, well, she'll be available to produce anytime it's needed. You know, you have a walk-in patient and she doesn't have anything scheduled, she can go straight from doing that, because her office duties are not time specific. She can just get them done throughout the day, and she's kind of there to help.
I guess for me, I just think of like, if there is extra front duties, either looking to either outsource or bring on a cheap help, a college student looking for extra work, or, you know, someone who wants to apply to dental school and get some extra experience. That's just where my head goes.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Adding staff is scary. And I just want to add staff that are kind of keepers. So when I find another winter hygienist that I know I'm going to keep versus a low paid, not as critically thinking, just fill in, or I don't know. That's my thinking. My hygienist she's just real smart, real on top of it, and can just problem solve really well. And I don't know. I think that in my office would help.
You'll have to let us know how it goes.
Yeah. I'm hoping it reduces the amount of questions I get every day, I guess.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
One of my pet peeves that I want to share is that when you talk to some of the providers that are really successful out there, that have been in practice for 20, 30 years, and they roll your eyes when you say you're going to manage by numbers and this and that, they have successful practices, they have built them, and they have something right they have done. And when they tell you the only thing you need to look at is your bank account, it's absolutely incorrect. Okay? It pisses me off every time I look at that and I see that comment on the Facebook group, because success is not happenstance. It just doesn't happen.
It's kind of baffling. It's an everyday kind of thing where you're striving to improve, you're striving to tighten your systems, you're striving to know your practice better, and just to get in that kind of complacent mode is easy. I can see how it happens, because you're so in the wheel and you get overwhelmed with things that this isn't something you want to think about a lot of times. But it really is so important that people focus on this kind of thing.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial.
That's a good segue. So you mentioned in your email that you're having a problem with systems, as you said. You're facing too many questions. You're probably being pulled in a million different directions, and that's probably contributing to your little bit of a happiness with your time at work.
Yeah, definitely.
So talk us through kind of where you're falling short in the systems department.
Like systems is the worst word in dentistry because nobody defines them very well and everybody has very different systems. All I know is that most of mine are broken. Most of them come from my office where they're confused about something. Our back office, the assistants don't communicate well enough what treatment needs to be scheduled or specifics about it. And so then somehow the question gets to me to make the final answer of what's going on. And I don't even understand how it wasn't clear in the first place, but that's because we don't use routing slips or some of these other things that you hear about. And so I can't really like lock down what systems are broken because they're all broken, I think. I just get a different question about a different thing every day and multiple times a day. And I try to fix them as we go, but just doing it on the fly isn't the best way to do things.
So how could you set up a better system, a protocol to avoid these communication breakdowns?
Yeah. So I've recently started doing the whole breakaway, everybody make your own manual. As far as like what your role is, you write that out, take pictures and structure it that way. So we're in the process of doing that right now. It's fixed a couple things off the bat because some of my staff have asked me like, how are we supposed to handle this? And I'll let them know, and then it goes in the manual, and then everybody knows. But I think that's one of the problems of being so new and not experiencing any systems or structure anywhere else is that like I really don't know what it's supposed to be like. I'm making it up on the fly a lot of the times.
But is it important that you don't know?
I mean, there's definitely better ways to do things. I just don't know what they are. I'm just ignorant of these great ways of doing things, I think, because I've never experienced anything else.
I mean, you seem to me it's like you have a strong intuition and you're a problem solver. So I find it hard to believe that the answers aren't just in you.
Yeah, I mean, I do my best. It's been a year and I still just get too many questions every day where I feel like I should have been able to do a better job and they should already know those answers, I guess. That's why I'm saying it's broken, because I'm getting these questions that I wish I wasn't, and I feel like my staff is smart enough to handle it. They're just maybe afraid, or I don't know what it is, because I have a very comfortable policy as far as when people make mistakes. I'm not worried about the mistake. I'm just worried about like not doing it over and over again. And so I don't care whose fault it is when there's a problem. I just care how are we going to fix it and not do it again. But that philosophy has not fixed everything in a year.
Is that something you've communicated to your team?
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, they still like to blame people for things.
People are people.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not worried about that, but how can we make it not happen again? And we only have one meeting a month, and I've been toying with the idea of doing a team meeting every week. We did a morning huddle, and it wasn't structured well enough to be beneficial, so I called it quits, and we went to a monthly meeting, and I think that's not enough. So a weekly meeting, I think, might be helpful with that, but I just don't know sometimes.
I'm getting that a lot. You feel like you don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of doing like blocking out a half day or even a full day to just really kind of devote to this stuff?
Yeah, we've done it before. We've blocked out half a day, and just had like a powwow where I had a little bit of an agenda of things I wanted everybody to know, because communication is not my strong point. A lot of times, and this is one of the breakdowns in my systems, I'll tell some people what I want to be done, but not everybody gets that message. So we have blocked out a couple times, couple hours, and I've tried to like knock those things down, but I just can't think of everything that's going wrong for those moments. I just remember when it happens again or when it comes up, I guess.
I feel like you'd be served by like whenever things come up, just writing them down. So you're like remembering them. And then when you have that big meeting together and you're getting everyone aligned about how you want to communicate and how you want to handle certain things, you have that reference list.
Yeah, I'm a big list guy. I need to do more. My wife sometimes when I'm complaining about something in the office, she'll say, put it on your list.
Now, do you have one of those giant to-do lists that has like a billion things on it?
Yeah, but I have like 15 of them that I'll have like 3 things because they don't just keep it in one spot. And that's probably my big problem. But
Yeah, got to get that a little more streamlined.
yeah, definitely.
All right. And you mentioned too, I mean, we've touched on some of these points, but a little bit of breakdown in your leadership. Why don't you let us know how that's showing up?
Yeah, so communication, I'd say, is probably my biggest flaw. The next thing is setting expectations and then auditing said expectations. I don't do a great job at auditing a lot of things that I ask my employees to do. The only time I audit them is when I go to use or see it and it's not there. I should be better at not congratulating, but I don't know the word, like recognizing when they do a lot of these things I've asked.
Like catching them doing something right instead of doing something wrong.
Yeah, I try to be better and try to do that, but I want to be a lot better than I am because I'm quicker to realize when they didn't do it right. But a lot of times I don't approach the problem when it happens. I don't like take them aside. I don't teach them. I don't explain why it needs to be a way. I just grab whatever it is that we're missing, finish up with the patient or finish up with the task and move on. And I don't kind of take advantage of teaching or clarifying or fixing the problem when they happen. I'm way too nice to my staff. Like I might almost feel like I'm coming off as a jerk, but my staff, I think, really appreciates how lenient I am. The previous seller was very, very strict and abrasive with them. I'm real slow to get upset. I mean, I never do, but some of them have taken advantage of it. And with some of the like things that you would totally expect, like they use their cell phones during work, and I mean, as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm not worried about it. But every once in a while, I've seen a scenario where it did have an effect on our office, and I didn't approach the topic.
What are you avoiding there?
Making my staff upset at me, for sure.
And what would that mean about you?
Yeah, that I care too much what people think about me and want people to like me. Yeah, that's a known problem that I have.
It's okay to want to be liked. It's not something you need to necessarily change.
Yeah.
But it's just a place to look that there's a gap in your leadership because for this reason you're avoiding these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what is that avoiding costing you?
Well, more headaches because I'm not fixing the problems, and so they continue to happen. My staff gets upset about it because it'll affect them when I don't teach somebody what they're doing is wrong or causing the problem. Then it also has a domino effect and makes their life harder. So we definitely have that classic front office, back office battle. But I think me being a better leader could make that better. I just haven't been able to do that.
So what can you take on tomorrow in your office that can kind of start to shift this pattern?
Yeah, having a couple of those difficult conversations with.
So how many are you going to have tomorrow?
Tomorrow, you put me on the spot. Yeah, I'll talk to everybody tomorrow individually.
Everyone. So you're going to go from no one to everyone in one day.
Yeah, why not?
Do you need any accountability around that?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. I'll check with you tomorrow, see if you've had those.
Yeah, send me an email tomorrow afternoon. Yeah.
Okay, so that's with the assistant, front desk, hygienist. So 3 of them?
Yeah, I have 2 assistants. So
Okay, so 4 of them.
yeah.
All right, the note is made.
All right, thanks. I'll have to put it on my list.
You giant to-do list. All right, so let's we talked a lot about your mindsets, your leadership development, your systems. Let's kind of shift a little bit into the metrics aspect of what we want to talk about. I don't want you to feel shortchanged in that area. So as you mentioned, you use dental intel. And how have you been able to use that? What kind of changes have you seen from implementing that?
So I have been able to focus on some numbers that are a little bit harder to find, just with Dentrix or Open Dental, like our hygiene reappointment percentage. I don't know how to find that in Dentrix, but what
You can't.
Okay, yeah. So with Dental Intel, it's pretty readily available. And we are now at around a 90% hygiene reappointment. And a lot of the ones that don't get reappointed are like special cases where it's mom's going to do it for everyone, or my family, for example, they come into town, they all get their cleanings and then they fly back home. But that we've had some improvement. We weren't as bad as I would have expected. Our worst months, I think, were in the 70s, but we're pretty consistently in the 90s now. My staff uses it just to kind of track our production and collections and a few things that we have for bonuses. But I am not a heavy user. I don't love Dental Intel, mostly because listening to George talk about practice by numbers, I feel like he has been able to get a lot more data from that than I have with Dental Intel. I haven't spent the time to really take advantage of Dental Intel. We use it, but not to its fullest abilities. But I still think it's not nearly what George has with practice by numbers. I mean, he talks about some statistics that I have no idea how to get in Dental Intel. I don't think it's possible.
No, that's why you got to switch to practice by numbers, but topic for another podcast.
Right.
I mean, what would you say to someone who's operating their office without some kind of metrics tracking software?
Well, I hope you're running reports with your practice management software. For me, it's just a real quick, easy way to go about it. I don't have to take any extra time. And so I think I check it a little more frequently and look at more stuff because it's so readily available. But I got it pretty quickly into starting buying my office, just because I didn't know how to run the reports and I didn't know if I was sinking or swimming. So I had to do it because I didn't know where I was at. But this has really helped.
For sure. I almost liken it to be like a head football coach and you're coaching without a playbook. It's like you're missing so many things that are going on right in front of you, and all you're seeing is just the playing field.
Yeah.
I can't imagine operating an office without some kind of software. So let's go through kind of what I've noticed in this practice by numbers dashboard we've run for you here.
Cool.
We'll start with some good things before we, beat on you a little bit. The first thing I did want to say, that hygiene reappointment rate was excellent. You're in the 90th percentile of all practices there. Last month, you're at 92%, which is excellent. That's the easiest way to keep the back door closed, and you're doing a good job of that. So good on you.
Yeah.
Your restoration to crown is in the 90th percentile, so you're not underdiagnosing in there. You're not patching fillings. You're right where you should be. You're at 2.5 restorations for crown. Very good spot to be. Your hygienists seem like they offer fluoride to just about every patient. They're getting almost 50% fluoride acceptance, which is great. I noticed your office has the highest Google reviews in your town. Beautiful.
We had 4 when I started, so we've
That's awesome.
accomplished that.
Do you got a service helping you out?
So we've used Podium, and
Podium, nice.
we don't do anything extra. I mean, outside of providing good service, we don't. We do a little giveaway like a Google Home Mini or whatnot, but really it's just the text message they get makes the biggest difference.
That's awesome. And it's keeping your new patients at a very solid level. You're getting 40, 35 pretty consistently these months.
Yeah. We started when I bought the office, they averaged 10 over the last 3 years. So that was something I've been pretty excited about.
Nice. All right, enough building you up. Let's beat you down a little. So a couple gap areas I see for you. Just looking in July, your average treatment plan presented $800, average treatment plan accepted $450. Both of those numbers very low. That average treatment plan size is in the 10th percentile of PBN users.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on there?
I mean, I am quick to refer, so I don't do a lot of surgery. I mean, I don't place implants. I don't extract wisdom teeth. I even send out a lot of just molars that need to be extracted if they've had a root canal and been around for a while. I just don't. It's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because you mentioned earlier that you had a couple extractions early on that didn't go so well. Talk about what happened there and how it's affected you now on how much you're allowing yourself to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a couple oral surgeons here in town, and I just had my office call and see if anybody could get the patient in pretty quickly because I ran into a spot where I was just like, this dude's not coming out. Whatever I'm doing, I could keep doing for a year and it's not coming out. So each time, the oral surgeons were able to take the patient, take care of them, and it worked out. 2 of the times I brought the office donuts the next day or that Friday. One of the times they had to stay after for it. It was we called over at 4:45 and they helped us out. But I just did not like putting myself in that situation. I didn't like how I looked in front of the patient, kind of incompetent. I didn't like the patient having to kind of rush over and just that panic that it caused everyone around because the patients are a little bit nervous as well when it goes so wrong that I can't even finish what I started. And I think I've let it affect me far too much because I took out some wisdom teeth in school, but I just don't even try. Fully erupted wisdom teeth, I don't even care. I'm sending them without hesitation. I'm sending them to referrals. So I think that has a little bit of an effect. Root canals, I do some. I send out every retreat. I haven't ever even dreamed of doing a retreat. Send out a lot of molars.
When you had to send those out, what did you make that mean about yourself? Because you built up some story around this, that this was the most terrible thing and this makes me a certain way. And now I'm just going to avoid even trying these in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I felt too much like a failure when I wasn't able to do it and didn't like that. So I just avoid those scenarios.
I'm getting that pattern, avoiding the hard conversations, avoiding the potential of can't get the tooth out. I'm hearing a lot of avoidance.
Yeah.
You see what that's costing your office as well as yourself?
I definitely did not know I was in the bottom 10% for sure. So that's probably pretty big. Yeah, that's an eye-opener. I've always been one that enjoys comfort. And so, like, doing those things, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, which, yeah, I definitely should do a little bit more. But it's scary because sometimes I mean, you think, like, I want to do what's best for the patient. And in a lot of these scenarios, sending it out is what's best for the patient. But I should probably be doing better at educating myself, doing some more CE, learning sedation, learning better extraction techniques and implant.
And I think you know more than you're giving yourself credit for. You said you took out wisdom teeth in school. I wasn't touching wisdom teeth in dental school. You're just kind of denying yourself even the opportunity to enhance your skills. And for me, as a patient, having to bounce between offices, that's equally as annoying than the 0.1% chance you might not be able to get the tooth out and they have to go over to the office afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think I overlook how much patients don't like going to a specialist. I had a patient wanting to do ortho. I do very minor clear aligners, clear correct in my office. And a friend of a patient of ours that I'm doing clear aligners with in my office told her friend that comes also, and she wanted braces. And I was not going to touch her case. I mean, she needs an orthodontic. She needs brackets and wires. And she was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to do it then. She came in fully ready to pay, and I wouldn't do it, so she's just not doing it.
You're their dentist. If I have a tooth need, I'm coming to you. You're my dentist.
Yeah. And I think I need to understand, keep my patients' trust a little bit better with that and not send them out when I'm a little nervous.
And I think it'd be useful too to like kind of audit your practice and say, what are the areas I'm sending out most often? And do I feel comfortable doing those things? If I don't really feel comfortable, then you look to those areas, get the education you need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're in a unique position because you learned how to be a dentist while you were an owner, which is not usually how people do it. So it's there's a lot more pressure on you. You can't have these procedures that are out of your comfort zone like you could in a residency or, just an office you're working at. Your name's on the door. It's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
So it'd be a place to look to see where am I most sending out often, and let me get some education in that area if I need it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. And you mentioned too that you're having a little bit of a collection issue, and that is something I noticed in your numbers as well. The collections for the last year was only around 97%. That would put you at the 25th percentile.
Oh, okay.
So what do you think is the issue with the collections?
Well, we've had and are having a little bit of a learning hurdle with my front office as far as understanding some things with insurance. So the previous seller, her spouse worked in the office and handled the majority of the insurance work. And I have just shifted that to my front office staff that was in the office before. I kept everybody on board except the hygiene department. And so she has had a hard time understanding a few things as far as like downgrades. She really struggled with that. And I wasn't involved enough to really see how often it was happening. And so we just weren't collecting on a lot of those downgraded procedures with insurance. And then we've had a couple like big cases where like bridges or things where they weren't covered and we thought they were going to be, and we haven't been able to collect on those.
Yeah, it's definitely an area to look to kind of tighten up a little bit of those collection systems and maybe doing an AR part report and auditing kind of where that money's fallen through.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's get into hygiene because I had some couple things I noticed there. I mentioned the fluoride, which you guys are doing great with. Is that something you implemented or that's been in the practice for a while?
No, it's been the same way since I've been here. And a lot of the patients just being with the seller always did it and are still doing it.
Nice. You mentioned the issues you're having with the 4 cleanings a year and how it looks like you have more perio than you do because what's showing on the numbers here is 6% perio for your main hygienist.
Yeah.
which I don't have to tell you would put you in the complete bottom of Praxis.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think we're as good as we should be, but what I understand how the software works is when it sees like the perio maintenance code or the scaling and route planning codes, that's when it locks them into a perio percentage. We have a lot of patients that are just getting 4 profies a year, and we're just coding it as that. And I've just had some pushback because they don't know and aren't sure how that's going to work with their insurance, or if the patient now has to pay $20 or whatnot because perio maintenance is only covered at 80%. She's a little nervous to try to charge them on
So
that.
it's just like the lack of knowing of the hygienist of how much the patient might have to pay would prevent her from recommending an SRP over 4 profies?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say so. Or the patients have been doing the 4 profies for so long, and I don't know that they necessarily need the SRPs at that point, but they're just still doing 4 profies. Or I don't know.
You think she's doing some scaling in those appointments?
Yeah, probably.
It's just an area to look. I mean, your hygienists are underperforming. Your main one does about 850 a day. That'll put you around 35th percentile. I think a lot of that is the lack of perio patients and just the fact that she's supervising a lot of perio. And I think it's kind of a restructuring her role is not, okay, this is what the patient needs, but now let me think of if they can afford that or how much is covered, and just this is what they need. And her role kind of stops there. It's not her job to figure out how this will work financially.
Yeah.
And that, it starts and ends with you as far as like just setting some expectations with her and, going through, okay, if you see this, this, and this is what I like you to recommend. And, this is how I prefer you handle it.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be my crucial conversation to have.
You might want to go into that one with a little more prepared than just that thought, because I feel like all hygienists are alike, and they like research and facts, and you need to be. Whenever I talk to my hygienist, I make sure I'm super prepared.
Yeah.
Or else she's just gonna tear me apart.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's make it something a little smaller for her tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. As I said, the hygiene peer appointment is great for all the different hygienists you got going on. Your main full time and your 2 part time. Okay. One other area I feel like you should look, same day treatment. Now you're doing some. Last month you had 8,000. That would put you in the 40th percentile. Do you have the capacity in your office for more same day stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a problem is me wanting a break sometimes, or even my staff. So I implemented the bonus system to try to eliminate some of that, and try to get my staff to understand the importance of it and how it can benefit us. But some days on those Thursdays at 3:00, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I don't know that I want to do this. And it's just a mindset of really just me being lazy and comfortable and done, instead of really pushing for it. And yeah, I need to be better, I think. And then I think my staff also needs to understand and be a little bit better as well. But I think that starts mostly with me.
As does everything.
Yeah.
I think it's important too to notice with same day, it's like you're going to get the highest case perceptions you're ever going to get with that person. And you don't have to have the possibility of them not showing up or forgetting their appointment or, whatever it is, they're there. I like to phrase it to a lot of them as like, if it's something small and it's the only thing they need, well, this way you don't have to come back for another 6 months. And if I'm at a doctor's office and they tell me I don't need to go here again for a while, whatever I got to do, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I have too many people coming back in for one filling at a time. that it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I get it. Like it's adding more to your plate than you mentally prepared for. So it's like just coming in with that mindset shift of, all right, this is the only things I got to do before I can leave for the day versus like, all right, what can I create today? I can create something that's not on the schedule. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the overarching feeling I'm getting with your dashboard is you're underperforming. There's a lot more in this practice than you're getting out. You're sitting, like you said, you've raised it from about $495 when you bought it. Now it's at about $540 in your first year. But there's still so much more you could be doing. If you had to put it to like one or two things, I know we've talked about some stuff already, but where is the gap of you not producing more?
Yeah, well, I think one of the more important things is me being more comfortable in doing more procedures, hanging on to more stuff. Being more confident in my diagnosis, I think would be helpful. Some patients, I might say, we watch, or they'll say, is it okay if we do this later? And I'm not as direct and straightforward. I'll kind of dance around it. Like,
you want to be liked.
Yeah, absolutely. So just having a little more confidence, a little better in my diagnosis and treatment planning with patients. That's probably one of the big areas. And then those systems.
That communication, those systems, avoiding those conversations.
Right.
Anything else you notice on this dashboard?
So one thing I would like to see is you keep referencing these numbers of where I stand compared to other users. Dental Intel does not have anything like that. So, like, I know that I've talked about comparing myself to other people has made me like less happy, but at the same time, like knowing more or less where I should be in some things can be very helpful.
See, I'm not gonna play into that. So that info actually isn't available for Practice by Numbers users. George and I are special.
Oh, look at that.
We got to keep one thing secret from everyone,
I guess.
Well, if you listen to enough of these podcasts, you could probably write down what I'm saying, and then you got it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny. Well, those are the biggest things that I saw. I just, the overarching thing is the office is just underperforming. There's no reason it can't get to the 80 or 100 or even more than that where you want to go. And I think for you, in building this office where you can have that second doctor, it's just about building the practice, about getting more patients in there. It's about filling more hygienists. And, there's definitely a roadmap to get there because I think, as you said, that's what you really want. It's not about the numbers. You're comfortable in your life. You're making good money. You're paying your loans. You have a great relationship with your wife. Good lifestyle. But it's just about having a little bit better balance with everything. And I think with the right moves, you're well on your way to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. You definitely brought up a lot of like really good things, and really just put it in words what I need to do better, and kind of found those things that I've been avoiding. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I'm excited for where I'm going, and I have a little bit better direction now. Hopefully I'll have the guts to really do some of these things.
Well, we're going to find out when we have you on in about 6 months. So there's going to be no hiding.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to acknowledge you for allowing yourself to be open for this. I know it's a tough thing to open up your practice, even though this is all anonymous, just to the listeners, and being willing to want to grow and in developing your leadership thing and doing the things that are uncomfortable. I think a lot of people aren't even willing to hear, have a mirror onto themselves and on the practice and have that broadcast to be thousands of people. So thank you for coming on. You gave our listeners a lot of value, and I just had a fun time talking with you through this.
Hey, well, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I mean, I've appreciated you and George and Richard and a whole bunch of other people that have shared a lot of their personal experience and their information, and has really helped me. And I feel like I'm a pretty average guy, and we don't hear a lot of those average. So hopefully it helps somebody. I mean, you definitely can do this. It is a lot of work, but yeah, I'm excited where I'm going. I'm excited for you guys and what you're doing here because I mean, I probably listen to almost every podcast you have. So I just appreciate kind of what you guys are doing and where this is going. And yeah, I kind of look forward to the next little bit.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for being on. We're looking forward to talking to you in 6 months. And I got that note to check in with you tomorrow. So be looking for an email in your inbox.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
All right. That ends another episode of Practice Underwater Podcast. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the first part of that interview with that new grad owner. I got with me George again, and George just mentioned to me that he wanted to do a little story time with y'all. So I hope you all are willing to listen to George's story here. George, take it away.
So we talked about clinical retraction as a new grad and an owner. And so for me, I have a couple really embarrassing stories about, the reason why I don't do, or I'm actually starting to do more. Now I'm a year out, I've done a couple endos in the last few months. I've done, I do a handful of extractions now, but for a solid year, it was just crowns, fillings, and night guards, which is a little embarrassing. But at the same time, I had this experience with this patient where, he came in fractured tooth number 5 at the gum line, and I sat there for like a solid 40 minutes trying to take that tooth out. And then at the end of the day, I sent him out to the oral surgeon, and it was a pretty embarrassing experience. I remember calling Richard halfway through that extraction for some help, and eventually I punted it. And then he came in a few months later with another fractured tooth, number 3. And he's like, I don't think you can get this one. It looks like there's very little there. And he talked me out of trying to do it. The patient actually talked me into a referral, which is, if you know patients, that's kind of rare. Normally they want you to do it. So that was a little embarrassing for me. And I think that experience from a more serious side totally made me stop. If I had any doubt on my ability to take out that tooth in a quick manner, I just referred it out. And it really held me back was me kind of getting over that trauma. It was totally a trauma of being a new dentist, being very self-conscious, and then kind of being caught with your pants down, having to send a patient out in the middle of an extraction to the oral surgeon to finish it up. And so my practice has one high-profile patient. I won't say anything else about that person, but we have one high-profile patient that happens to be here for part of the year. And my first root canal in private practice was on that person. Perfed.
Oh, no.
And I just restored the implant. I'll put it that way. So, those are my two, I'm literally like my first 4 months batting 50% on extractions. Like the number of them that I removed successfully versus, had to punt in the middle of the procedure. So, for me, that was, and I was the endo guy in school, that was the guy that they knew I liked endo, and I do like endo. I thought I liked endo, and now I hate it, but I liked it, and I loved endo, and I actually liked surgery. I do like surgery. I just don't feel comfortable or confident, and I think that's really a very real part of being a new grad as an owner is you have to pick your battles, and I very much retracted clinically so I could focus on doing the few procedures I knew how to do really, really well, so I didn't have to worry about them, and then just focus on the practice. And that was really hard.
So how were you able to get over that trauma? Was it just time passed, or was there some kind of shift there?
It was actually you.
No.
Do you remember us talking about it?
I do not, actually.
So yeah, you reminded me of that story. So I told you that story about that guy that with the extractions, and I sent him out and so he came back, and my perio did implants on 3 and 5, and I restored them. So he wasn't upset about it. It wasn't a big deal, but it was a really big deal to me. And so I think, and now I kind of like give patients the speech of like, if I'm doing an extraction, I'm pretty much preparing them to be sent out to the oral surgeon, even though it's like, I totally feel like I can take this tooth out. But I think for me, it was actually talking to you and realizing that like nothing bad happens when you retract or when you go out of your comfort zone a little bit to try to get something to happen. And, I did like an endo the other day that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, but I'm like, you know what, I'm going to push myself today and I'm going to do this root canal. And it came out really good. So I was really proud. And it was like a cool experience for me to know that I am capable of more than I think I am. And so it was actually talking to you and realizing that it's not a big deal if you don't do everything perfectly. And it is okay to have learning experiences because that's what you need to grow. And so for me, that was, and I'm not doing third molars or anything crazy. I'm being very selective, but I'm starting to understand that that's something I have to do. And so I'm very much, as passively as I can, trying to grow my clinical mindset. That's like not my number one objective in life, but it is when it comes up, I'll take those opportunities now.
Yeah, that's awesome, George. And it's important. The only way to grow is to get out of that comfort zone, is to do things that are uncomfortable. That's, scary a little bit inside. But I mean, at the end of the day, honestly, it's a tooth. You're not operating on this person's heart. They're not going to stop breathing if you can't take the tooth out. That's just kind of like, at least the way I approach it. I expand clinically all the time. I'm constantly doing things that are uncomfortable, scary. And I've had bad results. I've had numbness. Couldn't get the tooth out. I had to send them out. I've had a full mouth implant case that didn't take. You name it, I've gone through it. And it's easy to put yourself down and sleepless nights and kind of internalize that and make it mean that you're not good enough or you hurt this person. It's like, it's so much negative self-talk that's hard to avoid. But then at the end of the day, like that's how you grow, and that's how you're providing an important service to these people, and that they don't have to go to another office and bounce around. And you're their dentist, you're their guy or gal. Like they come to you when they have a tooth problem, and especially for me as a solo doctor, that's kind of the mentality I have to take. That they're coming to me to help with their teeth. If there's something, obviously I have to feel comfortable with doing it. But I'll do it if I think I can get the tooth out or put the implant in or anything or whatever it is. So that's cool to see, George, that you've grown in that way.
Yeah, no, it's been, it hasn't been, again, it's like not the thing I'm most focused on in life. And I think it's, it's weird because I do tell people a lot of the time, and I do also try to go to discomfort in other aspects of my life. But I sort of have this block as a dentist where I'm not as readily jumping into things that are uncomfortable for me as I would in other facets of my life. And I guess I don't know, that could be something that probably off air we would explore.
Yeah, this sounds like a coaching request, George.
Yeah, exactly. So, Matt and I from time to time will do that. And that's what I really like about our relationship. I think we have different strengths and weaknesses. And so I would totally bounce this question off of him, and try to explore why is it that I am, hesitant in dentistry to go towards my discomfort, but in other facets of my life, I really jump at those opportunities to grow. And as a clinician, I just don't. And so, that's been my experience, but I think it's common as a new grad. If you were apprehensive, that you're going to be very apprehensive because you don't have somebody else there. It's like, as the owner, you feel like it's your expectation to do a good job and to do it right. And you're taking over for a retired dentist and you feel like you have to, serve their patients well. And so you kind of put this weight on your shoulders that is sometimes it's different than if I was at an associateship and the patient, I'm not going to see them a year from now and I can just do it. And if it doesn't go well, then, that sucks, but at least it's not,
yeah, it's like the
I'm
adage
not letting
of
the retired dentist down,
If you can't deal with the complications, don't do it. And when you're an associate or residency, just time, you probably don't have to deal with the complications because you're going to be elsewhere. So yeah,
exactly.
It is different, when your name's in the door. Like there's more responsibility there. That's what we all signed up for. That's what we all wanted, and we got to keep that in mind. I want to touch on one thing before we end. Let's bring it back to this interview a little bit. He mentioned in this interview how he has this block when it comes to asking for help and asking for mentorship, and he's feeling like he's kind of a bother for them. George, you're someone who isn't shy about getting help, seeking out experts. You run you're on a podcast for years now. How are you? Were you something you were always able to do, or was there some kind of shift there that allowed yourself to kind of ask for help in that way?
Well, I think it's different now because when I started doing it, it was a one-way street where I would only ask for help and I would not give any help. And now it's very much, I probably give a lot more help than I receive, just because of the sheer volume of help that I dole out on a regular basis. But usually the person giving the help is enjoying it more than you receiving the help. That's been my experience on the giving end. And that's not an invitation to flood my inbox, but that is, kind of if somebody has agreed to help you in an intimate way, which I think are the best types of relationships, usually they benefit just as much as you do. And so in my experience, I have never been shy about it, but I also feel like I was never shy about it because I wanted that information so badly that I was able to push through the discomfort of asking for it. But now that I'm on the receiving end, I have no problem reaching out to like a peer that I respect, like yourself, and just sort of asking, hey man, what do you think of my situation? I got this going on. Like, what do you think? And I think it's great to develop those types of relationships because nobody is the best at everything. And, everybody has, so if you can identify an area where you might be weak and, ask for help, whoever's strong in that area will enjoy helping you. And I'm sure there's an area where you can help them.
Yeah, I like how you said that because it's not a bother in any way when people come to us, for help, but with anything, like it's something we enjoy giving back to the profession because we know how much we gain from people who gave it before us. It was so valuable to us that it's not a bother in any way. And I hope that's kind of a mindset shift that this young owner will get to where he's a little bit more forthcoming with getting that help and, not feeling like he's, disrupting their day by asking.
And I think just to tie it back to this entire umbrella shared practices thing, that is very much the name shared practices came from, is that idea that, we all share things that we've heard before and we will continue to hear. And, there's very little people that are innovators here. It's everyone's copying and sharing. And, so I think that's kind of what I love about this space that we're in, is that we're very open and honest and willing to share. And, like Matt and I have no competition with us in our dental offices. Like not a single patient of ours will be going to the other person's office. Like he's in New York, I'm in Phoenix. Like that's not happening, and so we can very much openly share and help each other, not worrying about what's going to happen to ourselves.
Yeah. That was beautiful, George. Thank you. All right, that'll wrap up today. Tune in next week for the second part of this interview as we delve into this metrics on this young doctor.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we can look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.